Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1295B, and today's date is June 1st, 2017, and the title of the episode is The Main Agenda of the Bilderberg Secret Meeting is Trump. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, in past reports, we talked about the Paris Climate Accord, we talked about Trump, and how he was leaning towards withdrawing the United States from the Paris Climate Accord. Well, today he came out and he said that the United States is now withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord. Now, we're going to go over what happened here and what he was talking about and what the Paris Climate Accord was really all about. But first, I want to start with European Commissioner President Jean-Claude Juncker, where he said that Trump, he doesn't understand the aspects of the Paris Agreement on climate change. He says that it will take at least 3 years to remove the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement. Now, this is true. And we discussed this before. It will take 3 years. Now, I think this was done on purpose when this was created. And if you abide by the deal, it would take the next president or whoever's in office 3 years to remove the United States. And I think they did this on purpose because they hoped that by the time they were almost done, that maybe a new president would come into office and they can stop the whole process. Because they don't want countries to remove themselves from this, because this has nothing to do with climate. Now, a lot of people are going to be out there saying, well, yes, it does. We want to keep the earth, green. We have to reduce our carbon footprint. No, these are bankers. Bankers don't care about the climate. They're not doing it for the benefit of you. They're not doing it to help the people. They're doing it to help themselves. Because we know the climate is always changing. Climates have always changed throughout history. And we could see that it's not the actual people who are changing the climate, because it's always happened. Is there any evidence human activity is substantially contributing to the detrimental climate change that we can reproduce over and over and over, where it's open and free and any scientist can get to it and reproduce their experiments? No. They don't want people reproducing what they're telling us because it's a hoax. So what we are seeing right now is this Paris Climate Accord has nothing to do with climate. So what is this all about? Why are multinational corporations, governments, bankers, why are they all telling us that we need to do these things? Why are they pushing this hoax? Why are they pushing global fraud? Well, the answer is very simple. Powerful people in the world who want to retain and maximize their wealth and authority, they do it by lying, deceiving, and misleading. The climate change mantra has always been about promoting two things: global governance, unaccountable to the people, and the rule of law and redistribution of wealth on massive international scale. The evidence is incontrovertible. Key leaders of this fraud have admitted as much in their own words. In 2010, Otmar Edenhofer, an official of the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, told German news outlet, first of all, developed countries have basically expropriated the atmosphere of the world community. But one must say clearly that we redistribute de facto the world's wealth by climate policy. What they were doing with all of this was they were going to use this to redistribute wealth and have the people pay down the debt. That was one part of the agenda. The other part of the agenda was to bring all the countries in line to a certain world status. And this is why the deal for the United States was not that great. Now, Trump pointed this out during his speech. He said, "We will cease honoring all non-binding agreements and will stop contributing to the Green Climate Fund," because this was taking billions and billions of dollars and putting it into this Green Climate Fund from the United States. He said, I cannot in good conscience support a deal that harms the United States. The bottom line is that the Paris Accord is very unfair to the United States. Now think about this. Why would it be unfair to the United States? He said this agreement is less about climate and more about other countries getting a financial advantage over the United States. Think about what he's saying right now. Why would that be? Now, we talked about this before because they needed to bring the United States down to a certain level, while the emerging markets, they needed to bring them up. This is why they were very lax on these countries. He said the agreement is a massive redistribution of United States wealth to other countries. Now remember, this Paris climate deal was supposed to work with the TPP, the TTIP, and they were supposed to work in concert. Now, what he's saying is that by 2040, our economy would lose about 6.5 million industrial sector jobs, including 3.1 million manufacturing sector jobs. All these jobs would be going overseas to third world nations. The United States would have to be brought down to that level. And once all that was done, those jobs would be coming back to the United States, but the pay rate would be at a third world status. This is what they were trying to do because they were setting up the world to be a one world government. And they needed to have the TPP, the TTIP, and the Paris Climate Accord. They needed all of this to work together. He went on to say that the U.S. is already a clean energy and oil and gas energy leader. We can reduce our emissions and continue to produce American energy without the Paris Accord, because this really had nothing to do with climate, as he states, that the whole deal had to do with business, had to do with corporations, had to do with taking the wealth from the United States and moving it someplace else, taking manufacturing and moving it someplace else. Now, he also brought up that, well, we're going to look at the Paris Climate Accord and we're going to renegotiate bits and pieces of it. And I'm going to tell you right now, most likely this is a non-starter. It will not go anywhere because in the globalist plan, they need things to be a certain way. And for things to be beneficial to the United States, this is not part of their plan because they need all the countries at a certain level. And to make it beneficial for the United States, it will not be a level playing field. So he already knows that this will not go anywhere. But again, he's playing the game. He has to play the game. And this is what he's doing to make them think like, okay, he's going to come back and we'll make some deals. Just like with NAFTA. Most likely, in the end, remember, it was developed to work for the globalist. Anything else, it doesn't work. Making it better for the U.S., it doesn't help the globalists because they need to bring the U.S. down to a certain level. If they can't do it, why have an agreement? Look at the Brexit right now, for an example. Okay, they're trying to have a negotiation, and the EU is saying, okay, this is what we want. We want billions of dollars. We want this, 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 and this, and that's it. Because it doesn't fit into their model. Remember, they deal in absolute. They don't bargain. There's no negotiation. And you can see they're already telling the UK that, listen, this is what we want. We're not going to negotiate any of these terms. Either do it or don't do it. It's the same thing with the Paris Climate Accord. It's the same thing with NAFTA. It's the same thing with all of these things because they have a certain model. If they don't follow it, they can't take over the world. That's basically what they're doing. They want a one world government, one world currency, and they want everyone on the same level where everyone is reporting up to them, and there is no governments where the people elect governments. They will be sitting at the top. That is their main objective. Now, we can see everything started with Trump getting elected, the Russian collusion, the Russian hacking, the firing of James Comey, and we can see it's all coming to a head right now. James Comey, the former FBI director, he'll be testifying on June 8th, starting at 10 a.m. This should be very interesting. We don't know exactly what he's going to say, but we'll have to watch and see. we see that Trey Gowdy, he looks like he's poised to become the chair of the oversight with Russia probe, because we understand that Jason Chaffetz, he'll be leaving the oversight chair, and he'll be handing this over most likely to Gowdy come June 30th. So this should be very interesting. Now, we can see there subpoenas that are out there. They subpoenaed Cohen, which is Michael Cohen, the attorney for Trump. We also see that Lieutenant General Michael Flynn has been subpoenaed to appear. But we also see other individuals who have been subpoenaed to appear in front of the House Intelligence Committee. And those individuals are as follows: Susan Rice, former CIA Director John Brennan, former United Nations Ambassador Samantha Power, and others that are being subpoenaed to appear in front of the House Intelligence Committee to talk about the unmasking. Now, this is very interesting because this is the real important issue. This is actually where a crime has been committed, and there's evidence where the FBI, all the intelligence agencies, they all look the other way. Now, these individuals are being subpoenaed, and they're going to try to get to the heart of the matter. Now, will they get anywhere? Who knows? But we can see that we're heading in this direction. Now, Trump was out there saying that, yes, this is what we need to do. It's the leakers. It's the people who unmask. That's where the real issue lies. Now, we can see there's going to be a problem with the Russian hacking because that story is falling apart. The Russian collusion story is falling apart. And remember all over the corporate media when they said, well, the Russians were hacking into Macron's campaign and they're the ones who did it. Well, it looks like we have a problem. Actually, not we. It looks like the deep state has a problem. Because right now, France has just confirmed that there are no traces of Russian hackers in the Macron campaign. Now, they looked at it and they said the hacking was so generic and simple that it could have been anybody. They have no clue. Of course they don't have a clue. Do you know how hard it is to find the hacker? Because they bounce whatever they're doing off of multiple servers. Whatever code they're using to get into the system. There's no breadcrumbs. There's no footprints inside of these pieces of malware or whatever they're using. They understand they need to cover their tracks. And they do it very, very well, especially if it was a state actor like Russia. They would cover their tracks and they would never find out. So right from there, which the corporate media was out there saying they were absolutely positive that it was Russia, well, that whole thing just fell apart once again. The same thing here in the United States. The DNC will not let anyone look at their servers. A private company looked at it and said, yeah, we think it's Russia. Now they're actually backing off. The whole entire thing is falling apart. But the deep state's not going to give up. We can see there were many things happening across the world. Now, we know that there are certain individuals within the Trump administration, within the executive branch, the Pentagon, where they want to bring in a lot of forces into certain areas, like Afghanistan. They were talking about not 5,000 troops, 50,000 troops into Afghanistan. Now, it just so happens that we had this bomb go off in Afghanistan, in Kabul, in the embassy, in Kabul's embassy district. Now, it's very interesting because Trump is going to be making a decision of, should we bring troops in there? Shouldn't we bring troops in there? And we just so happen to have a bomb that went off in Afghanistan. At the same time, where Duterte is fighting the Islamic State, and we know the CIA and the intelligence agencies, the deep state, they're trying to remove him with their paid mercenary force. We just so happen to have gunfire, explosions happen at a luxury resort in Manila, which is the World Manila Hotel in the Philippines. They reported that masked gunmen, they were on the second floor of the hotel, firing at guests. And we can see right now that this is all part of the plan. One, have bombs go off in Afghanistan while a decision is made, should we bring troops into this area? 2, let's remove Duterte from the Philippines. We'll bring in the paid mercenary forces called the Islamic State, and let's have a terror attack and try to push him into a place where we can eventually get rid of him. This is what the deep state does, and this is what they're doing right now. Now, Russia, actually Putin is out there saying that, listen, this THAAD missile system and the additional THAAD missile systems that were found in South Korea that were hidden from the newly elected president, Putin is out there saying this has nothing to do with North Korea, because he says once we make a deal, which is very interesting in what he's saying, once North Korea decides, okay, we will not pursue nuclear weapons, if the United States decides, okay, we will stop the drills, we'll stop the provocations, and we come to this deal, the THAAD system will not be removed because it is put into place for another reason. It's put into place for Russia and China, just like the missile shield that was supposed to be in place for Iran. And once the P5+1 deal was put into place and they weren't developing any type of nuclear weapon, Putin always said, well, why don't you take that down? And of course it never was, because it was really put into place for Russia. The same thing he's saying with the THAAD system in South Korea. It really had nothing to do with North Korea. But what I find very interesting about this is that he said, it's not about North Korea. If tomorrow North Korea declares it is stopping nuclear tests and canceling its rocket program, the U.S. will continue building the ABM system under some new pretext or without one at all. And he's absolutely right. This really has nothing to do with North Korea. Now, we can see that the U.S., they are provoking North Korea. They're having another military drill with the USS Carl Vinson, the USS Ronald Reagan. They're having this joint drill with Japanese destroyers. And they're having this exercise right there because, again, it's about provoking Kim Jong-un. Now, we know the South Korean president, we know China, we know Russia, trying to create this diplomatic peace deal between the U.S., North Korea, and the rest of the nations. But the deep state, they don't want this to happen. This is not part of their plan. And they're going to continually push forward with the provocations until they get their way. Now, of course, China, Russia, Trump, they're working on a completely different angle at this time to calm the situation down. We see that Russia, they are hitting the militants as they flee Raqqa. They are hitting them. They're bombing them. And we can see right now that there are more and more towns, there are more and more villages, cities that are being liberated. And the Islamic State, they are on the run right now. Now, Trump is doing something very interesting. We know right after Obama accused Russia of cyber attacking the DNC, fixing the elections, Obama decided, listen, we're going to be closing down the 2 Russian compounds in question, which were located in New York and Maryland. And now Trump is saying, well, it looks like we might be reopening these and letting the Russians back in. And of course, Trump, he knows it wasn't the Russians. He knows this was all completely fake, phony, and false. And it looks like he's doing this as some type of goodwill gesture towards the Russians. And of course, during that period of time, Obama, well, he expelled 35 Russian diplomats, sanctioned 4 Russian intelligence officials, and sanctioned 3 companies without any proof whatsoever. And this was done as the transition was happening when Obama was leaving and Trump was coming in. Now Trump is actually removing everything that Obama has done. Well, almost everything. He's allowing the diplomats to come back in. He's trying to open these compounds back up. And I think eventually what's going to happen is he's going to remove the sanctions from Russia. But that will take a little bit more time. We see that NATO, well, they decided that they will trigger Article 5 if there is a prolonged cyber attack against a country. Once they find out who it is, all the countries will join in and attack that country. That's really what this means. And it looks like they're still getting prepared and ready for some type of war. Now, every year, the world's richest and most powerful business executives, bankers, media heads, politicians, they all sit down in some luxurious, heavily guarded venue, and discuss how to shape the world in a way that maximizes their profits, makes them more powerful, takes away the rights of the people. And this is called the Bilderberg secret meeting that they have. And all these individuals, they gather and they talk about many different topics. One of the primary topics this year is Donald Trump. And this secretive 3-day summit of the political and economic elite, well, it kicks off on Thursday. And what's very interesting about all this, it's being held at the Westfield's Marriott Luxury Hotel, and this is a short distance from the Oval Office. Now, this is part of their agenda. The Trump administration, they want a progress report on this. The transatlantic relations options and scenarios. The direction of the EU. Can Trump stop or slow down globalization? Jobs, income, unrealized expectations. The war on information. Most likely the fake news, as they would call it. Why is populism growing? Russia in the international order. The Near East. China, nuclear proliferation. And some of the individuals, there's a whole list of all these individuals that are attending this meeting, where we have David Cohen, former deputy director of the CIA, Tom Cotton, who's a senator, Fabiola Giannetti, which is the director general of CERN, which is very interesting, Lindsey Graham, who's a senator, Henry Kissinger, of course, Christine Lagarde. I'm not really surprised that she's going to be there. She's the managing director of the International Monetary Fund, a central banker. H.R. McMaster, National Security Advisor. And there are many, many others that are attending from all different parts of the world. And we can see at this point is that the deep state right now, they're in trouble. It doesn't seem like they're in trouble, but Trump at every turn is basically unraveling what they've done. And they need to look at the entire situation to see what type of damage this has occurred. And will he be able to basically stop everything that they have done up to this point? And we can see right now, they need to take control back of the system. One way to do this is to collapse the entire economy, bring us to war, and retain the narrative of what really happened, maybe with cyber attacks, and try to basically shift everyone's attention away from Trump and what he's doing to the central bank, to the globalists, and try to show them that we need to keep the system the way it is. We need to let the central bankers help and reset the system while we go and fight a war. On the other hand, if they can't do this, Trump will bring down the economy. He will shift the narrative away from the globalists, shift all their plans, and hopefully stop the wars. And we will just have a collapse. We'll have to go through a period of time where it will be very tough, and everything will have to be reorganized, not just here in the United States, but in many parts of the world. But we can see this is exactly what is happening right now. The battle, it is being fought right in front of us. And we're going to keep an eye on it to see where this is going. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.